Hey, hey, hey. Happy Tuesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, incredibly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard. Tonight is Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. This is live stream 937. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual around here. We just hang out talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and most of the time we'll actually take a first look at a game. Now tonight, a little bit different. I am actually going to be sharing a live review. That's right, I'll be sharing my review of Cyberpunk RED from our Talsorian Games. This is the core rulebook, and I'll be checking in to share my thoughts about this in just a bit. So keep in mind, we're not engaging in rocket surgery by any stretch of the imagination. Just hanging out, having some fun. So, should point out, if you're tuning in to check out the live review of Cyberpunk RED, be patient because we tackle the tabletop gaming news first around here. So, it'll probably be maybe 40 minutes before we get into that review. So, if you are watching live, kick back, relax, put your feet up. I know it's early in the week, but I'm sure you've already worked hard for these first couple of days. Be good to yourself. Now, of course, if you are watching this 30 minutes or more after the show has ended, there will be timestamps. So if you're impatient, just got to get to that review, you'll be able to do so. So those timestamps are located in the show notes, or depending on the device you might happen to be watching this on, right there in the timeline of the video itself. So you'll be able to jump ahead. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you will not find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Lastly, this is a live stream, so that means there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways that I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you are a subscriber for at least 48 hours, you can jump on into chat. So maybe you want to just say howdy. Maybe you've got a question, a comment. Maybe there's something about Cyberpunk RED you want to get a closer look at. By all means, let me know. I will do my best to respond. So, first out the gate tonight in chat is Mark Dandy, followed by the Motor City Madman himself. Yes, the Madman is with us. He is one of our chat moderators. We've also got Agent Especial, Stray Kismet, and John Muscola hanging with the gang. Kabuki Kid and Kathy Evans are also with us in chat. So welcome aboard, everybody. Good to see you. And for some reason, it's like I have a little hair or something that was hanging off my nose. It's kind of funny because down here in the Duct Tape Studios, although there are no longer any cats allowed down here, the previous two cats spent a lot of time down here. And that was because Pinky, who is no longer with us, as is my other cat, Smokey, who's no longer with us. They had to spend the night down here because Pinky didn't always use the box to pee. So there are still some kitty hairs floating around and seem to have gotten one like perched on my nose. So as I was finishing up the hey and so's in chat and so's in chat, I was like, it's like, get off me, get off me. Nero's Fiddle is with us as well. So Kabuki Kid says, rest in peace, Pinky and Smokey. Yes, that was just an awful start to 2022 when in the first few days we had put both of the cats to sleep. It was not good. But of course, now we've got Mango and Lala. So they do not come downstairs, though. They do not come down in the basement because the reality is, and if you watched, was it episode 500? I think it was episode 500 where I took everybody behind the scenes a little bit of the Duct Tape Studios, where this is not a finished basement by any stretch of the imagination. I kind of staked out a corner with my lights and things like that. Although the reality is there isn't any duct tape anymore. So Magnet says, yeah, I understand completely about those cat hairs. I'm serious. It's like on the end of my nose or something. Isn't that good content? That's great content, isn't it? Wow. People are like, oh, I got to tune in for this more often. All right, let's move on into the news because coming from Lucky Duck in August is Cosmoctopus. And I swear that's what it's called. I've got the skinny on this family-friendly game where you actually play a cultist. Welcome, devotees. The celestial gaze of the great inky one falls upon you. Do you have what it takes to be the most dedicated follower? Cosmoctopus is an engine-building, tentacle-gathering board game for 1 to 4 devotees. Guide Cosmoctopus through the inky realm, a flexible configuration of tiles, to gather resources and obtain powerful cards that represent relics, scripture, hallucinations, and constellations. Harness the power of these bizarre objects and experiences, craft potent card combinations, and be the first to gain 8 tentacles to win. Your turns are simple. The game's excitement and depth lie in working out how best to use an ever-powerful hand of cards. Unlike some other engine builders, you'll be straight into the fun, upgrading your engine from turn 1. With variable setup, easy ways to alter difficulty, and optional solo and cooperative modes, Cosmoctopus offers a versatile tabletop experience, whatever your gaming tastes. Cosmoctopus is, once again, for 1 to 4 players, ages 10 and up, plays in around 60 to 90 minutes. It's going to carry an MSRP of $40 when it arrives in August. And I am sharing a plush it's Cosmoctopus. Man, that just doesn't roll off the tongue, does it? Cosmoctopus. It is not included in that $40, but you can get the little plush. I don't know how little it is, but you can get the plush for $20 as well. That's kind of cute looking there. So maybe I will have an opportunity to take a peek at this at Gen Con. I don't know if I'll have an opportunity to talk with Bree Goldman once again from Lucky Duck. I wouldn't mind. So I'm going to take a guess. This might be there. Maybe I can get some close-up photos at least. But actually, it looks like there's quite a bit going on in Cosmoctopus. So the Madman says, yeah, very odd name. Flaming Huron is with us in chat. So we've got two of our chat moderators. I will take a stab in the dark. Wouldn't be surprised if our third chat moderator is hanging out there, just quietly watching. Scott B. Smith is also hanging out with us. Chat is often running pretty good. So Flaming Heron says, damn, my stream wasn't even live. I was wondering why you were talking about something that wasn't on screen. It is live. It's not Memorex, not yet. Moving right along. Arriving later this year is Forest Shuffle. Here's the latest from Lookout Games. In Forest Shuffle, players compete to gather the most valuable trees, then attract species to these trees, thus creating an ecologically balanced habitat for flora and fauna. To start, each player has 6 cards in hand, with cards depicting either a particular type of tree or 2 forest dwellers, animal, plant, mushroom, etc., with these latter cards being divided in half, whether vertically or horizontally, with 1 dweller in each card half. On a turn, draw 2 cards, whether face down from the deck or face up from the clearing, and add them to your hand, or play a card from your hand by paying the cost, then putting it into play. Each tree and dweller shows a cost, and to pay this cost, you must discard cards from your hand into the clearing face up. If you play a tree, flip the top card of the deck into the clearing, then place the tree in front of you. If you play a dweller, pay only the cost on that dweller you choose, then slide that card under a tree that has an empty side that matches the dweller you want to play. A tree can have cards played on all 4 sides of it, top, bottom, left, and right. Alternatively, you can play a card face down as a tree sapling. This card costs nothing and can have dwellers played on it, but it has no species, whereas each tree is one of 8 species. After you play a card, you can use the effect on this card, drawing cards, placing additional cards, taking another turn, etc., or gain the bonus you gained if you paid for this card with cards of the same color. It's kind of strange. Gain the bonus you'd gain, or both, if applicable, with the effect taking place before the bonus. If at the end of your turn the clearing contains more than 9 cards, place all of these cards in the box out of play. During setup, 3 winter cards are placed into the bottom third of the deck. When the 3rd winter card is drawn, the game ends immediately. Then players tally their points based on the trees and dwellers in their forest. Whoever scores the most points wins. Forest Shuffle is the first in a line of Lookout games sporting the Lookout Green Line label, produced on FSC certified paper and avoiding plastic completely. Forest Shuffle is for 2 to 5 players, ages 10 and up. It'll play in around 40 to 60 minutes and is going to carry an MSRP of $29.99 when it arrives in Q4. I like the artwork. I think the artwork's really nice. And it could be kind of interesting. It almost feels like this is a bit of an engine building game, or at least it's a tableau building game. We'll give it that much. But very, very interesting. So let's talk about some role-playing game news. But first, let's say hello to the Watcher herself, Sarah D. She is our 3rd chat moderator, hanging in. She's using Ginger Stealth. That must be it. So the Madman says Sarah D's walking softly but carrying a big ban hammer. So behave. Desbot 92 is popping on into chat. Scott says Ginger is the stealthiest spice. Out of the Spice Girls? I don't know. I don't know. There is a new money-saving bundle of holding which has arrived, and it features the Dark Eye role-playing game from Ulisses Spiele. I've got the deets on the deal. Adventurer! The Dark Eye Mega Bundle presents the English language edition from Ulisses Spiele of the leading German tabletop role-playing game of heroic fantasy, The Dark Eye. In continuous publication since 1984, The Dark Eye is Germany's premier fantasy role-playing game. As a virtuous knight, elven ranger, or Urit mage, you'll rebuild the war-weary Midden Realm, marvel at the lands of the Telemedes, discover lost ruins in steaming jungles, or drive back the evil of the Shadowlands. Rescue innocent victims from cults of the Nameless One, navigate labyrinthine intrigues at the court of the Empress, or defend border cities from the Orc Storm. Especially useful for players new to the game, this big new mega bundle draws from our two past Dark Eye offers in January 2018 and June of 2020, and adds 10 recent titles. Everything you need to start exploring Aventuria, a rich and believable setting inspired by Europe's medieval lore, forbidding landscapes, and fairy tale castles. For just $24.95, you'll get all 10 English language titles in the Player Collection with a retail value of $106 as DRM-free PDFs, including the complete The Dark Eye Core Rulebook, plus the Character Sheets Pack, Deluxe Character Sheets, Figure Flats, and the free Quick Start rules, the Aventuria Armory, Armory of the Warring Kingdoms, and Magic of Aventuria sourcebooks, the Aventuria Almanac and Map Set, and the introductory solitaire adventure Conspiracy of Mages. And if you pay more than the threshold price of $46.06, that's the current threshold price, you'll level up and also get the entire Game Master collection with 12 more titles worth an additional $137.50. Let's not forget that 50 cents, including the Aventuria Compendium, plus its Compendium figure flats, the Aventuria Bestiary, and Gods of Aventuria sourcebooks, all 6 colorful scenarios in the 392-page Theater Knights campaign. Volume 1, White Lake, Volume 2, Blue Tome, Volume 3, The Black Forest, Volume 4, Green Platoon, Volume 5, Silverguard, and Volume 6, Red Choir, as well as the companion sourcebook Legacy of the Theater Knights, and the Dark Eye Game Master screen with its Inns and Taverns booklet. The savings do run through July 10th, and 10% of your payment after gateway fees will be donated to Direct Relief. I had a whole bunch of releases for the Dark Eye, which were up in my game sale, and somebody picked them up. Yes, picked them up for a song too. They picked up physical books. I think altogether, there were 8 books, Game Master screen, all that stuff for just a few dollars more than this PDF offer. So I find the Dark Eye interesting in some ways and way, way too fiddly and crunchy in others. I find it really strange how you roll 3 20-sided dice to resolve things. So I know people out there talk about how the Modifius Entertainment 2D20 system is a bit difficult to wrap your head around. They've never taken a look at the Dark Eye. So there is that. Although I got to admit, I think that's kind of a thing with European role-playing games. They tend to be different mechanically, sometimes almost feeling like they're just different to be different, not because that it makes them, easier to play or anything like that. Although, as Flaming Heron points out, it's an interesting enough setting. It is. I find the artwork to be a little generic for the most part. Uh, they tend to go with using the same like characters, kind of like Pathfinder does with a lot of their artwork. So, although I got to be honest, I think it's even more than Paizo Inc. does with their core characters. So there you have that. Scott says, speaking of watchers, anyone know when season 2 of What If is coming out? So the Madman says it should be July 20th, but nothing's been confirmed. Well, moving right along. The first 2 titles in the Cults of RuneQuest series are going to arrive in August. Now, of course, we are talking about the first 2 of the player-facing volumes that actually have gameable material in them. Here's what I know about the Lightbringers and the Earth Goddesses. First of all, the Lightbringers is going to carry an MSRP of $39.99, whereas the Earth Goddesses will carry an MSRP of $37.99. So I'm pretty sure the page count is a little higher for the Lightbringers because there are actually more cults included in that volume. So we do have in the Lightbringers 19 cults, whereas the Earth Goddesses will have 16 cults. Each of these can be used as the basis for a new RuneQuest character, offering a unique selection of spells, skills, and special traits. You can expand existing RuneQuest characters by adding cults from these books to their roster of worship gods. And there's lore and history of the Lightbringer pantheon as well as the Earth Goddesses pantheon of gods. There's also rules to advance your character to a god talker, a rune priest, or even a mighty rune lord. Yes. Both of these volumes are set to hit stores in August. I don't know if they are going to make it for a release at Gen Con or not. I do not know. Yeah, probably not is my guess. So, because I have noticed that there are still some issues with some publishers and getting the turnaround from the shippers. So I don't know. Got to admit, very cool art. It is all the same artist. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the artist's name. I believe he's out of Poland. And interestingly enough, you do notice that the goddesses all tend to be larger. And I think part of the reason is that many like folkloric sort of, if we go back like Bronze Age era, which is kind of what the technological level of RuneQuest is, that you would find that usually the goddesses in that tended to be plumper because they represent like fertility and health, and people who tended to be plumper were well fed and far better fed than most of the average people out there. So Flaming Heron says, I'm noticing an extreme lack of clothing as well. Maybe it's just these pictures that I have. It is kind of a theme I've noticed because there were about maybe 7 or 8 images that I have seen because they are kind of trickling out. But I wanted to make sure that I was sharing images that are from these 2 books. So in fact, I'm not even sure if the one that you're looking at right now with the pair, I don't know if that's from the Earth Goddesses or not. But So, Agent Special says they look like Neolithic Venuses. It's great. Scott says they hadn't invented clothes in the Bronze Age. That's just historical fact. Right. They only had armor and, helmets and bronze swords and things like that, but they didn't actually have clothes. I'm looking forward to these, and not just because of the art. Mine's out of the gutters, please. But should be pretty cool. One aspect that I really like about these upcoming volumes is pick up the ones you want, incorporate what you want. It's not like, oh, you've got to get every single volume, because there are 10 volumes and 8 of them are all pantheons. Now, we already took a look at the one volume that's kind of the encyclopedia. We took a peek at that already. Pretty impressive with that as well, although there was no real gameable material inside it, but still pretty cool. So these are going to be arriving in August. So the madman says, mine out of the gutter, but where's it going to go? I'm confused. Flaming Heron points out, who needs clothes? Russell Higgins is with us. I don't think I said hello to Russell. Let's move on to the final news piece, because now available in print and PDF is Die, the role-playing game from Rowan, Rook, and Decard. Here's the scoop. You're dragged into a treacherous fantasy world made from your own fears, doubts, and desires. There's only one way to escape, but with limitless adventure within your grasp, would you even want to? In Die, the role-playing game, you play a group of authentically flawed people, as opposed to, what, non-authentically flawed people? From the real world, who gather together to play a game and are trapped in a magical realm. Where are we here? I was just about to say, are you talking about like that movie with Tom Hanks? What are they prepared to sacrifice to escape? What are they prepared to sacrifice to stay? Built by Karen Gillan and Stephanie Hans, the creative duo behind the comic of the same name, this 408-page book gives you all the tools you need to build a bespoke world out of the obsessions and dreams of your friends. 5 unique character classes drawn from the comic give players access to powers beyond their imagining, bargaining with gods, augmenting their bodies with strange technologies, bending the laws of chance, twisting minds with a word, or channeling their deepest emotions into magical violence. The Game Master isn't left out. They get their very own class, the Master, who manipulates the rules of the game that the players are trapped in. Die, the role-playing game, has everything you need to play or run the game, aside from a handful of dice, some friends, and a burning desire to get lost in a hell of your own creation. The 408-page hardcover is available right now, carries an MSRP of $60, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $25. Kabuki Kid says, the infamous mazes and monsters. Fleming Heron says, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. Unfortunately, his is not being put to any good use. I got to admit, this seems unusual. It probably would not be my sort of game, because once again, it kind of feels like this is a game that's almost designed for you to have player character conflict within the group, which I am not a huge fan of, because I guess, some of the characters will want to leave this fantasy world and others want to stay. I don't know. But I gotta say, Rowan, Rook, and Decard tend to produce pretty interesting, pretty decent games. Pretty good stuff. Although I gotta be honest, that's only what I've heard through the grapevine. I have not had an opportunity to check any of their games out as far as memory serves. All right, that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I was just talking about DriveThruRPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit DriveThruRPG or Dungeon Masters Guild, Storyteller's Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first, click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, please give it a quick thumbs up. Yeah, I'm looking at you. But if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always swing on by paypal.me/thegaminggang and making a small donation. And yes, there are a few of you out there who are currently watching in chat who have used paypal.me, and thank you for that. In fact, thank you for all of you out there who happen to use the banner ads for DriveThruRPG and or stop by paypal.me. Much appreciated, everyone. Thank you kindly. All righty. So Christopher Rush is with us in chat. Welcome aboard. I just saw something strange and red. Just like, I don't know if it was something from chat that I haven't seen before, or it's not a spider in the in the monitor again. But no, I'd like looking at the camera, and all of a sudden I see like this little, oh, there we go. It's little hearts. I haven't seen that before. So I don't know. Tessie Trekkie is with us in chat. Quite a few people hanging out. Scott B. Smith says that they've played Crash Pandas from Rowan, Rook, and Decard, and it was very enjoyable. So Flaming Heron's like, Spider Chat, Spider Chat. Man says, strange in red. They're wearing red. Is their camera on? No, that's why it's like I said, all of a sudden I see out of the corner of my eye, because chat's off to the, that's why you notice when I'm taking a peek to see what's going on with chat, I'm always like, So JCrass23 is stopping on by. I believe this is a first time visit, so welcome aboard. Says they enjoyed the Pendragon review. Keep them coming. Actually, it wasn't a review. That was just a first look. But the review is hitting this week. It might be up tomorrow. I don't know yet. All depends. I'm actually working on a new intro for our videos. And because we've had that kind of comic book open for years, so I'm looking to kind of change things up a little bit. So trying to get that done. I am not necessarily the greatest, After Effects creator out there, but taking a shot at it. All right. Anyway, hey, rock through the news pretty quickly there. Very nice. Very nice. So, not really much random musings this evening. I will point out that I am in the midst of the summer sale for the Gaming Gang to help support the Gaming Gang. It's actually going all right. Not too shabby so far. I will admit, I'm really surprised. The war games are almost all still there, because I've got, I don't know, about 20. Good number of GMT titles. Worthington tends to be really pricey. So price-wise, they're actually priced to move, I guess we would say. And some Tiny Battle Publishing, some Flying Pig Games. I'm just really, really surprised, because whenever I put GMT stuff up, usually rocks out, most of it. But it's kind of funny, because I'm sitting here thinking, maybe I'll take them down from the sale, because if I take them to Gen Con, GMT titles in the auction at Gen Con usually do pretty well. So I would probably pull in more in the Gen Con auction than the prices I'm selling them for in the game sale. But then that also means I got to drag those with me to Indianapolis, and not sure what the parking situation is going to be like for the convention center just yet. So, other thing I do want to mention, speaking of Gen Con, is if you are watching and you are going to be attending Gen Con and you would like to get together, I'm thinking of maybe doing not like an official capacity or anything like that, but maybe Friday nights, Thursday night, all depends. Maybe going someplace in particular. And if fans of the gaming gang want to show up and have a cocktail, by all means. I know there are a few of you who are currently watching who are attending Gen Con, and I'm sure there's going to be a few more who watch this video later who are going to be attending. So by all means, shoot me an email at Jeff McAleer at thegaminggang.com. So Kabuki Kid says they read that Wizards of the Coast has stopped selling physical only books on their site. You can still buy them elsewhere, but I guess they're pushing their digital angle more with that move. I don't know. I have not encountered anything about that at all, but it would not shock me to see them trying to push the kind of bundle, because I've noticed they've been doing bundles where it's, I want to say, I think it was Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds. I think it's Roll20 actually, even though DriveThruRPG I thought owns Roll20 now, or One Bookshelf owns Roll20. But I did notice that they seem to be pushing that angle, but I have not popped in and taken a look at the Wizards of the Coast website. To be very honest, I don't know. I think if they really push this not selling physical books anymore, I think it's going to come back and bite them in the ass. I really, really do. And a lot of it has to do with they refuse to sell just PDF editions of their 5e releases. You can go to Dungeon Masters Guild, even go to DriveThruRPG, and you can pick up PDFs of old D&D, first edition, second edition, basic stuff like that in PDF. They will not release any of that for 5th edition, but they do for like D&D Beyond. That's what it is. It's D&D Beyond that it's the digital. I don't know. Why was I thinking Roll20? And they're not really PDFs on D&D Beyond. They're real clunky. They're real clunky. So, but Wizards of the Coast doesn't want to release PDFs because they're afraid of pirates. Not that it matters that you've got pirates who release their stuff a week after it hits stores. So it's like, okay, that didn't stop anybody. So why don't you guys do PDFs? Because the pirates are going to pirate. And the people who are not going to pay for games are going to go get those pirate editions. It's as old as time. It's as old as piracy itself. So it's kind of strange. Christopher Rush says physical always. John Brunhaver is with us and points out you can always print the D&D Beyond webpage to PDF. Correct, but it's not a PDF. It is a PDF file, but it's not like you would buy, I don't know, Cyberpunk RED as a PDF. So they are still clunky because I've seen them. In fact, now what they're doing with the reviewers, at least I think that's what they plan on doing from here on out, is they're giving physical editions to the reviewers as well as the D&D Beyond. And that might just be something that they're planning on having reviewers just do the digital releases. And if and when that happens, that will be about the end of me covering Wizards of the Coast, because I'm not shooting videos for PDFs. I'm not. And I really don't do written reviews anymore. So the Madman says that the U.S. Coast Guard is jokingly referred to as puddle pirates. Hoist the mainsail and strike the colors. JCrass23 says, if you pirate their stuff, watch for Pinkertons. I don't know. All I can tell you is I don't think there's a single 5e D&D release that has not been pirated and that floats out there in PDF. I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying it happens, and it's silly that Wizards of the Coast. Same thing with Fantasy Flight Games. Well, now it's Edge Studio, and the Star Wars role-playing game. It wasn't their decision. It was Lucas Arts or whoever who said, hey, you can do this role-playing game for Star Wars, but no digital releases. All that stuff's floating out there in PDF. People just scanned it and whatever. So Kabuki Kid says everything gets pirated. Books, video games, anything. Yep. Coco B is with us. Says, if I was interested in 5e, I'm sure I could find a PDF. You wouldn't have to look too hard. You would probably just have to Google search Dungeons and Dragons 5e Monster Manual PDF. Probably find it. Christopher Rush says they've found pirated PDFs of D&D books that they own just so they can print stuff off for their players. Yeah, I mean, you purchase the books. I don't know. Kind of weird. All righty. So we're going to be diving on into my review of Cyberpunk RED in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Baseball Joe was a slugger, He made all the pitchers cry. He was frank to admit the reason he hit was T-O-D-D-Y.
Toddy.
That's the drink for me.
Toddy.
Try it, Pop, and see.
Toddy.
Man, oh man, that's the brand new chocolate malt in a can.
Yes, sirree. Try Toddy and you'll agree. Toddy is as delicious as the finest tasting soda fountain malted you ever had. Ice cold or steaming hot. Ask for Toddy.
Delicious.
On sale now at our snack bar.
Schmitz, one beautiful beer. Schmitz is a dry beer, a mellow beer, a hearty beer, blended into one beer, a light, bright, fun beer. Schmitz,
One beautiful beer.
is a dry beer, a mellow beer, a hearty beer, blended into one beer, a light, bright, fun beer. Schmitz.
One beautiful beer.
Schmitz of Philadelphia, one beautiful beer. 1 truckload Wilkins regular coffee? Check.
What was that?
Wilkins instant coffee? Check.
We can't tell you what there's gonna be, but if you wanna see, you better stick around.
They're slugging it out in the middle of the ring. And there's a hard drive to the top. And Blue Bomber's block is knocked off. His block is knocked off?
Sure, but you can press it right back on again. It's just part of the action with the world's only boxing robots, the Rock'em Sock'em Robots by Marx. Takes 2 managers to handle the fighters and lots of skill to win. With these control levers, you can keep your fighters in motion to duck punches. When you press this plunger, he throws a right uppercut. Press the other plunger and there's a left jab. Lots of exciting action and fun for everyone when the world's only boxing robots battle it out.
The Blue Bomber's looking for an opening. And there it is. That's the end of round 2.
Just push the flying head back and you're ready for round 3.
Boy, this is the greatest.
You bet! The world's only boxing robots. Get the Rock'em Sock'em Robots by Marx.
Yes. Sir D asked, why did that one guy in the Schmidt's beer commercial look like Rob Schneider? So I've got an interesting little side note. We will get into the review in just a sec. Years ago, my brother was friends with Rob Schneider. When my brother lived out in LA, and he was pretty good friends with Rob Schneider. They'd go to the movies and stuff. And Rob Schneider was like in films at the time. This is right around his, like Deuce Bigelow years or whatever. So kind of weird. Kind of strange, but yes, my brother was friends with Rob Schneider. All righty then. So tonight, I am going to be sharing my review of Cyberpunk RED from Talsorian Games. It's written by Mike Pondsmith, James Hutt, Cody Pondsmith. What the heck? English, Jeff. Cody Pondsmith, Jay Parker, Jay Gray, David Ackerman, and Jay Kovacs. A lot of J's involved there. The 200, man, my teleprompter is not working right. The 456-page hardcover carries an MSRP of $60, where you can grab just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $30. So yes, okay, finally, English, Jeff. Use the correct words. How did I stumble over Cody Pondsmith? It's Mike Pondsmith's son. Duh. I don't know. All right, so here we've got Cyberpunk RED. A few things I do want to mention. First off, the fine folks over at Talsorian Games were kind enough to provide me with this review copy. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the gaming gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. These days, very important that you know that. Also, we're not going to look at each and every page, but I do want to give you a really good feel for Cyberpunk RED, what's in this book, and share my thoughts about this as well. Scott B. Smith says, Rob Schneider seems like a nice guy. A little odd, as far as I know. Not knocking him. I'm just saying, as far as I understand, he's fairly odd. Kevin R. Smith is joining us in chat. Good to see you, Kevin. All right, so let's dive on into Cyberpunk RED. So this is essentially the 4th edition of Cyberpunk. And this takes place during the time of the Red. So if you're curious, if you possibly live in a cave, this is the same Cyberpunk setting that Cyberpunk 2077 from CD Red Project utilizes, which I thought was very cool. And I'll be very honest, I have actually been playing it as of late because I had heard that they had, made updates and patches that made the game playable, and it's actually pretty cool. So, of course, this is a role-playing game. This is kind of the venerable cyberpunk game. I know there are people out there who strangely think that Shadowrun is the best cyberpunk game out there. I would certainly argue that fact quite a lot. So we're going to start off, we get some fiction to kind of set the scene. And this is set during the time of the Red. So period from about 2022 in an alternate timeline, of course, through 2045. So this is right around 2045 where this is taking place. So Christopher Rush says they played 2077 from day one with far less problems than the latest Bethesda game. So anyway, Kabuki Kid's pointing out Rob Schneider sort of has a solid name. I got to point out there are some reasons my brother's not friends with him any longer. So just leave it at that. Leave it at that. Moving right along. So this is built on what's known as the interlock system. I think interlock appeared with the anime role-playing game that our Talsorian did years ago. And I think they still publish it. Mekton, I think that's what it's called, Mekton. So the interlock system is actually really easy to grasp. It's very, very easy to wrap your head around. So what you're looking at is that you have attributes. In this case, we have 10 different attributes. And we also have skills. So you're going to have a level of 1 to 10 in your attributes. Reality is they mainly fall like 2 to 8. And then you also have skills, which could be 1 to 10. So 10 is like phenomenally high. So it's very, very unlikely that you'll have a character with a 10 as far as an attribute or as a skill level, really, to be honest, at any point. But it does exist. So what you're going to do is the game master is going to have a difficulty value, what they call a DV, and say something's real easy, it'll be a 9. Something's pretty difficult, it's going to be a 15. So it's like a DC. It's a difficulty number. We're used to that in many role-playing games. And what you do is you're going to take your skill and add the appropriate attribute to it. And then you're going to roll a 10-sided die. You're going to add all that together and look to meet or exceed the difficulty value. Easy peasy. That's it. That's really your action resolution. Now, granted, there's a little more crunch than that. In fact, there is a Cyberpunk RED easy mode that is available. Although, to be very honest, I find this system to be very easy to wrap your head around. But then again, maybe for people who had never played like a tabletop role-playing game and who are interested because they've been messing around with Cyberpunk 2077, I could certainly see maybe that's why they have the easy mode that's out there. They do that. Our Talsorian Games has done that for The Witcher as well. So another cool aspect of Cyberpunk RED is that there are 3 ways to go about creating a character. And which of the 3 you decide to use is essentially just how much involvement, how much detail do you want to invest yourself in before you start playing? Because the first way of going about rolling up a character is pretty simple. And I would think it would take maybe 15 minutes for you to go about having a player character, a viable character to be able to play. Now, if you go with the most detailed way of creating a character, probably going to take you about an hour, but still pretty quickly done, especially when you consider you're looking at skills, you're looking at gear, cyberware, all these things. But you'll notice as I'm flipping through here, I don't really have any mind, like rhyme or reason to this. You're going to see there's lots and lots of tables. Don't let that scare you off, because the reality is the vast majority of these tables you are not going to be flipping back and forth, utilizing constantly. So this is the different ways to generate your stats, your attributes, which we have: intelligence, willpower, cool, empathy, which empathy is really important because your humanity is based on that. So the lower your empathy, the higher your chances are that you could have cyberpsychosis from too much cyberware. So you want a higher empathy, depending on how much gear you want to have plugged into you. So we've got technique, reflexes, luck, body, dexterity, and movement. So here you can see that we have different ways of just going about, okay, so I'm going to roll a 10-sided die, and then I'm going to take the result and look across, and boom, there are all my scores. Done. Now, we do have different occupations. So we've got rocker boys, and we've got net runners, we've got solos, and very, very cool. If you are a fan of classic cyberpunk stories, the William Gibson tales, the Bruce Sterling, the Walter John Williams, this is the game for you, because this is straight up cyberpunk from the 80s and 90s. And yes, I know we still have authors who kind of play in the cyberpunk genre. Not as many as we once did. So Christopher Rush says the art is sparse, but very, very nice. There is a good amount of art. I wish we had more like full page or even spreads, because a lot of the artwork is just kind of like half page, some even smaller. Kind of funny. We do have these ads throughout the book that are pretty funny as well, pretty satirical. You know what I mean, chooms? So we've got all the info about creating your character, which takes up about 85 pages. We have fiction throughout the core rulebook, and I will be the first to tell you that I am not really a fan of too much role-playing fiction in a core rulebook, because let's be honest, it's usually pretty shitty. I mean, come on, let's be honest here. But this is actually pretty good, and does a really nice job of filling you in on some backstory too. Shaz is with us in chat. Good to see you. So we've got our various different skills, and you'll see with the breakdown. Now, earlier on, there's actually a few pages. Here we go. And this is kind of the character creation where it's like, oh, okay, so here's like real quick rundowns of what the skills are. So during character creation, your players can be looking at this as far as their skills. And of course, their occupation is going to tell them what skills they're going to pick up as well. And then further on, where we're more into the core mechanics of the game, we do get far more detailed information about these skills. And we get an understanding of what a certain level would represent. So there's mention of baselines. So at a baseline 10. So what that means is a baseline 10 is going to be your skill level plus the attribute. So weapons tech would be tech. So let's say you had a 3 and a 7. Well, you would have a baseline of 10. And here it says at a base 10, you have learned to fix your guns when they break and sharpen your knives when the edges wear out. You have the skills to keep your weapons in pretty good shape. At a base 14, you are a skilled weapons tech who can rebuild most pistols and cheaper guns after catastrophic mishaps. And putting an edge back on a sword is no problem at all. And I'll say at a base 18. So when I'm talking about that base or the baseline, you're also wanting to remember that you're going to roll a d10 and add to that base to meet or exceed the DVs, the difficulty values. So we're going to get a bunch of information about combat. Pretty simple. Once again, you are going to have some combat moves. And then, of course, it couldn't be Cyberpunk without some martial arts in it. So we've got that as well. But once again, you're not looking at terribly detailed or complex systems in combat. We're looking at essentially the same core mechanic. So as an example, initiative. So combat begins, you're going to roll initiative, you're going to roll that 10-sided die, and you're going to add your reflexes to it, and that is going to be your initiative number. And of course, whoever's got the highest goes first, and you go from there. So you're essentially looking at just the same exact action resolution as far as combat. Combat is very deadly. If you are familiar with any sort of cyberpunk, and I'm not just talking about this cyberpunk setting, life can be cheap. So it plays out that way here as well. But keep in mind, there are all different ways for characters who are on the verge of death, or maybe they've been killed, to be revived with the trauma teams and things along those lines. Now, probably the most complex aspect of Cyberpunk RED is the net running. And even this isn't overly complex. But what I do recommend, and the fine folks over at our Talsorian Games were kind enough to send me this deck. You do have the net running deck that's available to you. I would certainly recommend picking it up because not only is it far easier for a player to visualize what's going on as far as net running and the steps of defeating various different defenses and countermeasures and things like that, it makes it so much easier for them to visualize that when you're able to lay out the structure of the dive that the net runner is going to be taking. So something I should also point out is that even like the net running isn't going to like occupy a ton of time at the game table, which is good if you have a variety of players in your group. They're not all going to be net runners. So you're going to have characters who focus on other special abilities and things like that. So if the net running was overly complex and you had to really spend 30, 40, 60 minutes on a run, your other players would be tuning out. Kevin says that usually if there's a story in front of an RPG book, they skip it. I like reading fiction, but I buy RPGs for the rules and setting lore. I gotta be honest, I'm with Kevin. But I did read the opening story, and it's short. The opening fiction is good. The fiction throughout is good. And I was very pleasantly surprised. Speaking of trauma teams. So one part of the presentation for Cyberpunk Red that I really got to ding the book for is that although the presentation is nice and clean, it is not necessarily intuitively presented. So there's a lot of jumping around. And you'll even notice we'll have these little side notes with various different pages for more details on different things. And as a game master, I got to be honest, running Cyberpunk Red, you are going to be flipping all over the place in this book. Now, there is a PDF, and as far as I understand, it is really well hyperlinked. So that might make life a little bit easier. But I even saw somebody had commented on the video that I did where I had a first look and did a page through. And they said they love Cyberpunk Red, but they actually used Photoshop to completely rearrange the PDF to make it easier to use. Now, I'm not going to go that far. I'd say, well, this needs to be completely cut apart and put back together. No, I'm not going to say that, but it is true that you're going to jump all over the place in this book. And unfortunately, that is a knock on Cyberpunk Red. As far as the artwork, love the artwork. The paper quality, really nice. Very nice. Not as thick as, say, Free League Publishing releases that we'll see, but still far, far better paper stock than we find like with Wizards of the Coast releases. I am kind of curious, though, how well this book is going to hold up to a lot of repeated use at your table. There were a few points when I hit spots that looked like they might come apart. I don't want to say relatively easy, but probably easier than I would have liked to have seen. Now, it's just a gut feeling I've got. I'm not saying, oh my gosh, this book's going to fall apart. Absolutely not. I'm not saying that, but this is over 450 pages. So a lot of times when we start seeing a higher page count, a la the first print run of second edition Pathfinder, the core book, a lot of people got some copies that fell apart. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I would be a little concerned. I don't know. It's just a gut feeling that I've got. So we get about 100 pages of background material about the Cyberpunk Red setting. So this is in the time of the Red. It's following the Fourth Corporation War. And the reason why it's the time of the Red is for years, there had been so much ecological damage done to the planet during this Fourth Corporate War that the sky was red. So by 2045, which is kind of right when this is set, if you want to set it like current day Cyberpunk Red, now it's just sunrise and sunset are very, very bloody colored. But we get all that covered. We get a lot of information about Night City, which is the default setting for Cyberpunk. It is located on the West Coast between Los Angeles and San Francisco. And at this point in time, I don't think it's a free city yet. I think it's a free city a little later in the timeline, more when you get into like Cyberpunk 2077, which I believe, I'm not positive, but I do believe our Talsorian Games is going to come out with a source book where it's going to be for 2077. But as you can see, we've got all this background information about Night City and the world of Cyberpunk Red. Now, something we don't get a lot of information about, we get little nuggets about, is the state of the rest of the world. And it seems as if much of the rest of the world is doing all right. It's just kind of the US that's pretty screwed over. I think Japan to a certain extent. But the United States is splintered, and it's no longer a superpower. Neither is Russia either. But really cool, really interesting. So, and if you have a particular favorite as far as like a cyberpunk author that you want to kind of utilize Cyberpunk Red to use in that sort of setting, that world building, I would say this would be fairly easy for you to do so. Now, something else I do want to mention is that with the like the gear, the cyberware, the fashions, things like that, I was kind of surprised, a little kind of a generic feel to the proceedings there. We don't get a lot of artwork showing us what these items are. Now, I will point out we do have Black Chrome that recently came out, and Sammy's doing a review of that. In fact, I have another Cyberpunk review that Sammy's doing for, I want to say it's the first source book. That'll be out later on this week. But I was kind of surprised that we didn't have, more in-depth detail about the various guns and cyberware and, like I said, fashions and things like that. It's enough for you to be able to utilize in game and to understand what these items are and what these items do. But I would have thought there had been a lot more artwork in that, but there is not. Now, one thing I also find to be very cool with Cyberpunk is the section here, Running Cyberpunk, where not only is it discussing, well, what sets cyberpunk as a genre apart from other science fiction, but it also talks about beats and how to establish an adventure with various different beats. And it's something that I think not only is good for cyberpunk, but you can pretty much utilize the process for just about any role playing game, modern, fantasy, what have you, with some tweaks. But I thought that was really, really interesting on how to make your game really feel like it's an action-packed science fiction movie. So then we get essentially a little bit of a bestiary. We get some NPC stats and stuff. And then we end up wrapping up with some more fiction. I would have loved to have seen an actual introductory adventure. Now, of course, there is the Cyberpunk Red Jumpstart Kit, which I reviewed quite a while back when it came out. That does have an introductory adventure, and of course, the skeleton of the mechanics in order to dip your toes into Cyberpunk Red, which I liked it. I thought it was a pretty damn good starter set. So that is what we find inside Cyberpunk Red from our Talsorian Games, and some of my thoughts about it as well. So let's swing on over to the other camera because I'm going to share some final thoughts as well as my review score. I have to say, if you have any notion of running a true cyberpunk role-playing game, right? We're not talking about dragons and monsters and magic. Oh, and by the way, cyberpunk. No, we're talking the William Gibson, the Bruce Sterling, that kind of cyberpunk. If you have any notion to run a game set in that kind of game world, look no further. Cyberpunk RED is that good. Yes, I have some minor quibbles about the book, the way it's laid out. Kind of, like I said, I don't want you to think, don't pick up the physical book because it's going to fall apart. I just don't know, because you know how some game books you can just beat the hell out of and others you can't? I would say this is probably closer to don't beat it up. Treat it with some love, which I do all my game books, so it doesn't really matter. I think Cyberpunk RED is fantastic. Simple rules system. Newcomers to role-playing games will easily wrap their heads around the interlock system. Super, super easy. Like I said, the net running is probably the most complex aspect of the game, but if you pick up the deck, make life a whole lot easier for not only the player, but you yourself as a game master. So I like Cyberpunk RED a ton, and this should be your go-to for cyberpunk genre role-playing. Should toss out, in case you didn't know this, and funny enough, this had nothing to do with me doing this review today, because if you follow the gaming gang, you know I've been trying to get my review of Cyberpunk RED out there, but Cyberpunk and Mike Pondsmith were actually entered into the Origins Hall of Fame. So there you go. Cyberpunk, a Hall of Fame role-playing game, and it shows. It really does show. One last thing I do want to mention, and this is more because of the review for Cyberpunk 2020 that Sammy did for the Gaming Gang. Something I was very happy to see is that for the most part, the images of female characters are not as sexualized as they were in Cyberpunk 2020. If you're familiar with Cyberpunk 2020, you'd have a guy, all, just jacked up and all his armor and all these weapons and things like that. And then you'd have some female character who is barely wearing anything. Sort of like, kind of cuts both ways, right? Shouldn't it? Actually, it kind of does in Cyberpunk 2077. But on a scale of 0 to 10, I give Cyberpunk RED a very high recommendation. I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Without some of those minor problems, this could have been a 10 out of 10. It really, really could have. The biggest ding is actually because of how things are kind of scattered all over the place in the book. That actually was the biggest deduction as far as the review score. But I highly recommend Cyberpunk RED. And if you are really into classic Cyberpunk, you might bump that score up a little bit. So there is that. All right. Kabuki Kid says, I baby my books too. So Madman says, I'm with you, Jeff. I treat all my books like they're fine china. Even my original AD&D books look brand new. Just like even novels, right? Paperbacks, things like that. I would never like dog ear a page. Here's something bizarre, right? I still don't use like any sort of page marker or bookmark or anything like that. And I can pick up a book that I've been reading and know exactly where I stopped. But yeah, I would never dog ear a page. Ooh. Hey, I would hate when I'd see that. I would hate when I'd see somebody reading a paperback and just treating it like, whatever. Feel like somebody put a lot of love into writing that book. They're bucko. Fleming says, well, they invented bookmarks for a reason. Yeah, I know. It's just a weird thing. that I've always been able to do. If I've been reading a book, I can pick it up and go like within a page or two of where I left off. I don't know if I'm like just subconsciously noticing page numbers or what. So, all right. Kabuki Kid says, yeah, they're fairly careful with paperbacks too. John Muscola says the entire cyberpunk world is screwed. Seriously. Yes, it is. And it doesn't matter which author you're reading. Yeah, the cyberpunk world, regardless of the author and their setting, usually not looking good, not looking up, not looking promising for the majority of people on the planet. All right, so that's it for tonight. So if you're curious what we're going to be doing the rest of the week, tomorrow it's going to be a War Game Wednesday. I'm going to unbox and take a first look at Seas of Thunder 1939 and 1945 from our pals over at GMT Games. So that is on tomorrow's agenda. Then on Thursday, we are going to dive on into the starter set for Dreams and Machines from Modifius Entertainment. I don't think this comes out until August. Well, we're going to dive on in, take a first look. Then Monday, I've actually got the rest of this week and next week all planned out. Of course, watch something will show up and be like, oh my gosh, we got to get that in. On Monday's show, we're going to take a look at Uncharted Journeys for 5e. I had to double check to see if they had 5e on it. I thought they did, but I wanted to make sure. This is from our pals over at Cubicle 7 Entertainment. So that will be on Tuesday's show, a week from today. Then a week from tomorrow, we'll look at The Barracks Emperor from GMT Games. This is a card game set during the Roman time of crisis. So we will jump on into that. And then we will also be taking a look at Masters of Dune a week from Thursday. This is also from Modifius Entertainment. Got quite a few things. If you watched last week, I talked about the just over a 24-hour period, got tons of stuff. There's more stuff on the way. And of course, as we get into convention season, hopefully we'll see even more goodies. So Kevin says they tend to take care of books as well. Their paperbacks are never dog-eared. Other than crinkled spines, there's usually no damage to them. I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. So the Madman says, I have a hard time taking board games to friends' homes. They bend the cards. It causes me anxiety. You know what drives me up the wall is when somebody's snacking on greasy stuff and they're playing a game and they're just like touching your cards and then it's like, dude or dudettes, napkin, please. But, you know, it's unfortunately these days you got people who are like, oh, that's not mine. I don't give a shit. I don't own that. I don't care. You know how it is. But most of us are a little bit older, you know, hanging out in chat and that. And we grew up with the, hey, you know, you treat people's stuff with respect, you know, even though it's not yours, it's, you know, somebody else's. Fleming Huron says, use the coasters. So Sarah D says, dude is gender neutral. I don't know. I never seen dude as a gender neutral thing. That's why I've always said dude and dudette. But then again, you know, that's going way back. Madman says, stop it, Jeff. You're spiking my anxiety. Greasy. Oh, yeah. Let's have Cheetos and play Magic the Gathering with unsleeved cards. Come on, let's do it. Alrighty then. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already, and if you do subscribe, by all means, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube. It'll also let you know when I upload other videos, such as today's Paizo preview for June 2023. That actually went live about 20 minutes before the show started. And I am going to do my best to get my review of the Pendragon starter set from Chaosium Inc. out there tomorrow. It might end up being Thursday. All depends. But I am going to do my best to have that out there probably late afternoon tomorrow. All right. If you were watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, a bigger thank you. Because not only are you keeping me company, you're keeping each other company as well when I'm sharing a review or doing an unboxing, page through, what have you. But of course, I know a lot of you out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Really do appreciate all of you taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the Gaming Gang channel. I will be back tomorrow, and here's hoping each and every one of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang. Oh, hey, you're still here. That's okay. You don't have to leave just yet. In fact, why don't you subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel right here, or take a peek at the latest live stream, or even find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks again for watching.